Unpacking the Performance Assessment to create an FLG. Focus language goals in an Understanding by Design unit help prioritize what to teach for language development in the context of content. What is priority language? Language that ELs can use across classrooms. It's high leverage and portable. It's language necessary to engage with standards-based practices and analytic skills. Now that you've seen how the collaboration tool breaks down the components of a focus language goal, you may be asking yourself, when I meet with a content teacher to collaborate, what's a good starting point to develop focus language goals? Where do we begin? One great place to start is with the content unit's final performance assessment. In the Massachusetts Model Curriculum Units, or MCUs, this is the Curriculum Embedded Performance Assessment, or the CEPA. The CEPA is a culminating assessment, so it tells us what academic practices, knowledge, and skills students will be expected to demonstrate by the end of the unit. Based on the academic expectations, you can look for the language demands that all students must meet, and then make collaborative choices to prioritize high-leverage language your ELs will need to meaningfully engage in challenging content standards. We'll walk through an example of how to use the CEPA as a starting point. Let's imagine an ESL teacher and the science teacher are meeting to plan an ESL unit for students from grades 3 through 5 with English language proficiency levels in the 1 and 2 range. The science teacher is doing a unit next month, Weathering and Erosion, for grade 4. So they look at that unit's culminating performance assessment to figure out what are students expected to do in order to demonstrate understanding. In other words, what are the key academic practices? In this CEPA for Weathering and Erosion, students must identify processes, produce a written piece that explains your interpretation, support claims with evidence and reasoning. These are some of the key academic practices. The most common high-level key academic practices across content areas are on your collaboration tool. Next, the teachers need to identify the macro language functions, the key uses of academic language that will help students engage in the academic practices. In the CEPA, are students going to be recounting, explaining, arguing, discussing? The teachers decide that they will prioritize the driving language function of explain. So, what more specific language do students need to explain their interpretation? This is where microfunctions come in. Microfunctions are smaller linguistic building blocks that help to co-construct the macro functions. Looking at the CEPA, students will need to describe causes and effects to explain their interpretations about how weathering and erosion lead to changes in landforms, and they will need to offer evidence for their claims. The microfunction of cause and effect will be needed. The microfunctions listed on the collaboration tool are ones that frequently occur across the content areas. There are others, so you can add to this list as you need. At this point, it's important for the teachers to note the language their students need to describe causes and effects of their landforms. The collaboration tool online is linked to sample progressions of 14 language microfunctions. The progression samples are not prescriptive or exhaustive. They provide examples so you can unpack aspects of academic language to create clear and flexible instructional paths. The teachers have now identified all key components of an FLG. Key academic practices, macro language function of explain, and the microfunctions of cause and effect students will use to explain. And they can now draft a focus language goal for the ESL unit. But here's an important thing to keep in mind. The UBD design process is iterative, so the FLGs are a work in progress as you build stage 1 to 3 of a unit. So, FLGs will probably be refined as you progress. For the Weathering and Erosion ESL, MCU, the ESL teacher also wanted to highlight how important academic conversations and student interactions are to the process of language development, so she added an FLG that included discuss. FLG 1. Discuss by identifying evidence from a given landscape that includes simple landforms and rock layers to support a claim about the role of erosion or deposition in the formation of the landscape. FLG 2. Explain by describing cause and effect supported with reasoning and evidence. To download the collaboration tool materials and the Next Generation ESL Curriculum Resource Guide in full, visit www.doe.mass.edu/ELL and click on Curriculum and Instruction.